Hello and welcome to the show. This is This England? This is our first episode. We really hope you enjoy it. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter and Instagram at @isthis_England. Thanks and enjoy.
Hello, welcome to Is This England? A show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this. Today, we're starting off with one of the greatest friendly games of the last 20 years, England snatching a late win against Argentina in Geneva. I'm Nick Nicholson and I'm joined with my friend Jordan Harris. You alright, mate?
Excellent, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. This is it, isn't it?
This is it. We've been talking about this for a long time. It feels like a potentially untapped market. Not to sound too capitalistic about it, but we're both big England fans. I think, it's supporting England is one of those crazy things where when a tournament comes around, nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
And everybody gets united and it's just fantastic. And it's also really rubbish a lot of the time. So do you want to explain the premise? Because this was Nick's idea, and I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, it was the idea of basically I was watching international tournaments and England especially, and just thinking there's not a lot of content out there in terms of just old England games. And one of the best things is kind of looking back over things and hearing people talk about it and dissect stuff to death and over. And I was just during the Euros, I just didn't find anything out there where I thought was consistently coming out about England and kind of the different stages of England and what you go through as a fan a lot of the times when you watch it and what you kind of learn as you go back to. So the game we're kind of talking about today is the one that first sprung to mind of, a really big occasion and really the idea of what England is.
I was going to say, if you want to explain the title and the concept there and what we aim to do, because there is a point to this, apparently.
Yeah. Well, the idea is, what is England? What is watching England play, basically, as an English football team? And to me, England, the international side, the men's side, is failure a lot of the time. It's kind of hoping for something that's going to happen, never quite happens. It's finding new ways to embarrass yourself in international football a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, there are a lot of highs following England as well. But because it never reaches that next level in our lifetimes of actually winning something.
Well, I'll interrupt there because I think looking back, we're going to be looking through old games and games that stand out for one reason or another. But really, if the time we're recording this, end of January 2022, England are the best they've ever been in my lifetime. Yeah. Obviously, we had the Euro final last year, which we're not going to cover until we win something because it's too painful. But yeah, so. Supporting England, I agree. It's a lot of failure, a lot of hope and dashed hope and what ifs and, what could have been. But at this point in time, I'm really happy with the England side and the manager and everything like that. And I'm excited for the World Cup later this year. Hopefully, if this podcast takes off, somebody will pay for us to go. Well, I don't actually know if I want to go. I'd rather be at the pub, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we jump into the first episode then and
Open up and contribute a couple of items into our time capsule. So this time we're taking an element of the year that was 2005 and placing it in there to be preserved in history for all eternity. Nick, do you want to start?
Yeah, so obviously this takes place in 2005, as you've already said, and to me, 2005, I'll kind of always remember it as England winning the Ashes in 2005 in the cricket. It's the reason I kind of started following cricket, and it was annoyingly by a lot of people it's still talked about, even though it's so long ago. But culturally, you had all the England team kind of went to go meet the Prime Minister, and there was open top bus parades. I mean, if England, they're not very good at the moment, but if they were to win the Ashes now, you wouldn't get any of this, and they were all rewarded with like New Year's honours as well. And
I'm not sure. Maybe it was just the quality of the games because I'm not a cricket fan, but I was a young lad, and that I was 14. Really captured mine and my brother's attention to the point, we were going, man, get us cricket bats and stuff like that. Trying to play cricket in a little garden with, made of concrete and stuff like that. And we brought the DVD box set. And
I had that as well, exactly.
It's just never been that sort of central to the news, I guess, since then. I don't know why.
I think maybe 2019 for me kind of was as a cricket fan, because it was when England hosted a World Cup and there was an Ashes summer in that as well. It was the kind of the year of getting slightly off piece with Ben Stokes as well, becoming like a national icon. But yeah, 2005 to me is just totally encapsulated with that.
Yeah, I guess what I'll put in the time capsule is very practical, and you could probably find a lot of coverage for the Ashes on it. It's the invention of YouTube.
YouTube, okay then.
Or the launch of YouTube.
Yeah.
Maybe the invention was a bit before that, but this podcast wouldn't be possible without the lovely people at YouTube.
Well, Mr. YouTube sending us all those clips and the videos we're watching, definitely.
Yeah, I mean...
That's pretty big, that is, isn't it?
It's kind of one of those things where I feel like a bit of a legend for putting that in, because, you know...
You're going to yourself up. You're
going to be entertained. You're going to be entertained, aren't you? If someone digs YouTube out, like all this other stuff, you can find everything pretty much else we've put on in the time capsule on YouTube. But yeah, a big deal. And I remember loving it when it came out, because I could just watch full Oasis gigs.
Yeah.
That was my main use for it early days. Obviously, over the years, it's just become a bit of a... You know, I'd probably, if I'm putting it in a time capsule, I'd probably remove all of the like YouTubers from it, but I'd just have like the music videos and the gigs and the football matches.
Yeah, I think you would you obviously take it for granted these days, but the idea of going onto the internet and being able to watch any video almost that was just so exciting. I remember one of the first times I saw it. And it was like I went by my friend's house, and they were like, "Oh, this girl's just talking about her life, and kind of she's got difficulties at school and her boyfriend." And you were just like, "Wow, like that's really interesting," but it's clearly not.
Yeah,
it's just like one person like you could speak to in another room.
Yeah. So YouTube's gone in there as well. So let's move on.
We're going to be picking games from different eras completely. We're purposely trying to find games from different eras. So I think that'll be a nice feature of the show. Just a shout out if anyone does listen to this, and you can send us any random England game, because there is a well, and that well will run dry. Or maybe if you work for the England media team, give us your passwords, give us your hard drive.
We want that archive.
We want that archive.
Lovely, tasty archive.
We want the England network, basically the WWE network, but for England games. I want them all.
As we were like doing this, I did think, why have they not done this? Like, surely they've got the rights to all their own games. I know, like with FIFA and things like that, and obviously during the lockdowns that we've had in the last previous years, more games have actually gone. Full 90 minutes live available, but again, they are quite few and far between.
And it's not going to be a money maker, is it? I don't think there's many people who would want to pay monthly for that, so you'd have to kind of make it free. Maybe it should be free. We're bloody English. we should be allowed to watch all of our country's games.
Defeats.
So you're going to give us a run through the state of football at this time,
Yeah.
so not just England, just the wider football world?
Yeah, just because what was happening at the time, really, around the time of the game. So back in 2005, in this era, Wigan was second in the Premier League.
So is that... they definitely didn't finish second, right?
No, they'd just got promoted the previous season, and they'd come up. I remember them losing 1-0 at home on the first day of the season against Chelsea. Hernan Crespo with a ridiculous goal from outside the area, and they played really well in the game. But as the season went on, it was November time, so they're second at the minute.
So they were second around November time, the time of this game. Interesting. I mean, they were there's always a team like Wigan. I would say now you've probably got like Brentford or somebody like that a plucky underdog who wins some big games. I feel like Wigan were a bit one of those that you could always count on them to take points off like whoever was leading the title race at the time.
I think this first iteration of Wigan as well. It's Paul Jewell as manager, Jimmy Bullard playing, Pascal Chimbonda. There's a lot of personally a lot of good memories around that Premier League era, because it was like a team like Wigan just come up with not a great fan base either in terms of how many go to games at the time, but it just seemed to go into the JJB Stadium was quite a difficult thing, really.
Yeah. So Birmingham, Albion, Sunderland, they were fighting it out in a relegation dogfight, which they would all lose because they went down. I mean, not much has changed there really, except Sunderland very low down in
League One now.
League One.
Yeah.
Albion, obviously, they've just signed Andy Carroll.
Yes.
At time of recording and trying to get up into the Prem, but
Actually,
I don't think it's going to happen.
Is he not at Reading now?
No, he's just signed for Albion yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what? Reading saw the amazing 2 disallowed goals
Yeah.
that he had recently. It was like, that's not for us.
Yeah, well, I think it was a pay-to-play thing or something like that he was doing, and Albion have seen those goals and go, "That's
Yeah.
for us. Give us
Yeah.
some of that." Because then
Look at that man who's not scored the goals.
you can probably tell from my accent, they're a local team, so I have sort of friends who are fans, and I mean they're fuming about it because
Yeah.
they just think we should be signing better. It's good to have Andy Carroll, but should be signing maybe better players if you want to take this promotion fight seriously.
Well, amazingly, speaking of Andy Carroll, we now move on to Bolton. So Bolton's Kevin Nolan around this weekend scored an absolute worldie to beat Spurs 1-0. Bit of a clamour at the time for Andy Carroll's future landlord to be picked in the England side.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of kind of Nolan and Bolton around that era?
I remember, as you mentioned later on, him being Andy Carroll's landlord. Was it like
They were
keep an eye on him for us?
Basically, they were at Newcastle, and Carroll had, I think it was in Carroll's first spell there, and he was just like, he's a bit of a wild lad, but he was playing well at Newcastle, and Nolan kind of took him in to kind of say, look, if you live with me, I mean, I don't know if Nolan had a family at the time, that seems like the maddest house you could be involved with, really.
I had a night out in Newcastle a couple of years ago, and I saw Andy Carroll there with his boys, and it wasn't. He didn't look like like some of his boys were a bit rowdy, but he seemed quite quiet. But obviously buying everyone's drinks. I think he was playing for West Ham at the time, so what he was doing on a Friday night out in Newcastle. I guess he was injured.
Just back at the homeland, really.
Yeah, Bolton again. Sort of. I feel like Wigan, as we mentioned earlier, you could always count on them, but just. Bolton had been doing that for a couple of years at this time, it feels like.
Under Allardyce, yeah. They'd kind of come up and established themselves as a Premier League side. And actually, when you look at the team they had, it was like players like Djorkaeff, Okocha, even Campo was playing around at the time, Pedersen, Giannakopoulos. Like, it's just players like, I guess, maybe other generations that didn't grow up in this era will just go, well, some of these players are a bit hit and miss or whatever. But it was a really exciting team. They had Fernando Hierro playing for them as well, which is ridiculous.
I remember. Didn't he get sent off in his first game?
Hierro.
Yeah, I think I could be thinking of somebody else. Either way,
maybe Jonathan Woodgate. Maybe it was like a bit of a swap.
You asked about Kevin Nolan, and not many memories. I think you mentioned there was like a clamour to get him in the England team, but I see it as like a Jesse Lingard situation. Maybe there's just better players. As we'll get to the team. For all of its faults, England did have a lot of good players in his position at that time, and I just think you can clamour all you like. You can't play more than 11 players, and you can't have a bigger squad than however many subs you're allowed for and you can't take everyone. It felt like in the Euro 2020, that was Euro 2021. There was a lot of talk. Why didn't we take Lingard? Why didn't we take Ward-Prowse? And it's because we took Mason Mount and Declan Rice, and
much better players in their positions. And then you're looking at the forward line. You're thinking, well, you got Foden, Grealish, Mount.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point with Jesse Lingard, it would have been good if he'd have gone. But was he ever going to play many games? And would you go right? Lingard's got to come on and change the game. And you'd probably say the same for Kevin Nolan of like a really good player in that Bolton side, probably captain around the same time as well, and there was a period where he was just scoring great goals every week, I remember, and he was a really, really good player. I think I
was going to say
he have got a cap.
A couple of caps, maybe.
Maybe he got a cap. Vaguely remember him maybe playing against Spain in a loss at home, but that is like very unreliable memory. That is after a long time ago.
So what was happening up the top? At the top of the Prem?
We're kind of in the middle of the first dawning of Chelsea under Jose Mourinho. It was just before this game, they lost their 40-game unbeaten run in the league to Man United the previous weekend, a Darren Fletcher header from memory, and they were on course to go and try and beat Arsenal's unbeaten record. I mean, they're only 9 games short of matching it.
That was a team that I did enjoy watching.
The Chelsea side.
Yeah, just Mourinho. It was as much as it was like they're just buying the league. I loved players like Drogba, Makelele, and they had a really good squad, and the manager was just crazy. I'd never seen anything like Jose Mourinho in terms of his personality.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed it. I was surprised at how quick the wheels eventually fell off, because it felt like they were going to dominate for years, and then I was like, oh, they've sacked Mourinho in the middle of a season. What the hell? Surely he could have ridden that out and stayed at Chelsea. But
I guess it's a bit of a prelude to what kind of comes with Jose Mourinho, isn't it? But that was the period of, and we'll kind of come on to it in the game as well, where he kind of not invented, but brought to England this thing of, well, he's brought already Damien Duff's there, Iron Robben comes in as well, and you think, well, how are both of them going to play? Because it was, you are left-footed, you play on the left wing.
Yeah.
And with Jose Mourinho's side, it was actually one of them plays on the right, cuts in and scores. And that now being
wonder
Robben is so obvious.
I wonder who took up that role.
But at the time, it was, they were kind of sharing the same role and rotating a striker as well, and it was just ridiculous. And I think we'll come on to it, like I say, with England, where it's just, there's a left-footed player, we were going to have to try and play them there, and it wasn't a thing where a right-footed player would play in that position.
Well, we'll be getting on to England shortly. Just another, I guess, event of note was the infamous or famous Roy Keane departure at Manchester United interview. You could probably go into a bit more detail on that.
Yeah, it's the real story of the time, really, around this era. So, Roy Keane unceremoniously leaving Man United comes a few weeks after Roy Keane's interview with MUTV was pulled because he slagged off the whole team.
I remember that. So he slagged off
loss.
Fletcher, Ferdinand, Kieran Richardson. I mean, we've got a couple of quotes here. Ferdinand, just because you're paid 120 grand a week and play well for 20 minutes against Tottenham, you think you're a superstar. That is very harsh. That is incredibly harsh.
It is absolutely harsh because of the player that Rio Ferdinand would kind of become. But at the time at United, he was kind of having quite a rough era. I think I may mention it a bit later, but around that time, he's not quite signed his contract at Man United. He's kind of getting booed by fans a little bit because he was seen meeting with Chelsea and of playing in a midfield at times at United. United just had no players in there that consistently played. So I remember games where Rooney and him would both play there.
Not Keane.
No, I think, well, Keane had left during this period. So it was this season coming up is where Ferdinand kind of tries to fill in while they've got Vidic and Brown or Silvestre playing there.
Yeah. Another quote here, which I've just read and I think is absolutely hilarious. On Kieran Richardson, he's a lazy defender who deserved to get punished. He wasn't doing his job.
Well, again, Roy Keane obsessed with people and how their jobs are and what they are is just ridiculous, isn't it? He did also say of Darren Fletcher, I can't understand why people in Scotland rave about Darren Fletcher. Again, very harsh for a good, solid player that he was.
I wasn't a big, not a fan, but I didn't really see Fletcher's value until later in his career. I can understand Keane going mental at everybody. That he had high standards and led by that. Should we move on to sort of a bit of the build up to this England-Argentina game?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the England side first, it's England's final game of 2005. Having played well at year 2004, but gone out in one of the games of the tournament on penalties to Portugal.
So the concept of the podcast being, is this England? Going out to Portugal on penalties in a major tournament is so England. I mean, oh my God. It felt like we were doing that on loop for most of my teenage years.
Yeah, well, it was the Euros. It would end up happening after this game as well in 2006 to Portugal. It just seemed inevitable that England would play Portugal and come up short really with this team.
Yeah, I was definitely a big believer in the England team at this time that we could do something. I loved Sven. I'm sure we'll get onto that a bit more. The team itself had been a travelling show, basically, hadn't it? Going around the country, playing at stadiums like the Etihad, St James's Park, Villa Park, Stadium of Light, Old Trafford.
Even Portman Road as well at Ipswich. It just seems quite crazy, really, that England would go and play at Ipswich. I mean, at the time they were in the Championship, but quite still a good ground, an old-fashioned ground. And thinking back, it's just mad, really. But with that, do you think there's a greater sense of connection with the team because they're travelling around the country, not everyone having to come to London to watch England?
I think so. I would agree. I think it encourages people, exactly like you say. They don't have to travel to games. They can go and it's like, England are coming to our city. This is going to be great. Let's go. You can take the young kids as well and don't have to worry about the travel. I do think now after the Euros, and I know it all went chaotic at Wembley. But we have golden Wembley moments now, so I think people want to go there to see the next one.
I think so, definitely. I think there is something lost about, and maybe it's a bit of a bigger point with the FA Cup semi-finals being at Wembley and not being as special. I mean, I've been to Wembley a couple of times for club football. We've both been to actually the new Wembley to watch a friendly prior to the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
And I do think it should be a special thing, but I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of England games go on the road for certain friendlies, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree. So we were qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah,
at this time.
2006 World Cup.
But this game is a friendly.
Yeah,
the England-Argentina game, right?
Yeah, so this is England have just previously qualified for the World Cup. The group was a lot tighter than I remember. Like I don't really remember a lot around the qualifying, but doing a bit of digging, I kind of cleared a few bells out. So They ended up winning all their home games, but drew in Austria and lost in Belfast to a David Healy goal. Quite a famous moment for Northern Irish football, really.
Yeah, that was a low.
Yeah, that was very England of that kind of era.
It
just
was.
the wheels coming off a little bit slightly.
Yeah. Again, we'll have a lot of Sven chat throughout the game. I do think that he'd had his high really at this point. It was kind of last chance, and I think the signs were there that this era was coming to an end.
I think even before the tournament, he may have even said that this was his last tournament. I think it may have even come out in the build-up. But also, this is what I remember from this game is David Beckham playing central midfield for England, kind of playing as a base of a midfield three, and trying to do an impression of Andrea Pirlo, floating balls out wide, but actually not pushing the team up the pitch. It seems he would have been playing central for Real Madrid around the time, a little bit more on the right, but just doesn't seem to fit in this England side.
So what about the dirty Argies? Sorry, that sounds terrible, but it's a fierce rivalry. What were Argentina up to around this time?
So they'd started in their own World Cup qualifying campaign back in 2003. Started well, but lost 3 of the last 4 qualifiers when they were pretty much already through. South American qualifying for World Cups is quite a bit different to the European side of it. So they're always drawn in the same groups. It's just one large group with each other, and they all play the same fixtures for like 3 qualifying rounds, maybe. So Argentina will always be at home to Colombia, or host this era. Argentina always hosting Chile in the first round. Brazil always traveling to Colombia, and then every couple of tournaments they kind of change it round really, and it brings a bit of an identity to qualifying, probably. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I prefer it or have much of an opinion on it really, but it is like a different world, isn't it? The South American passion for football and international football as well.
I think with that as well, I mean, it maybe gives it a bit of identity because it's been a long time since I couldn't tell you who England's last World Cup qualifying groups were. For a long time, really. I think the last one I really remember is Croatia's group in 2010.
Yeah. Bloody Croatia. Still not forgiven them. We're going to have to get stuck into the more current England because at the moment I'm still a bit raw from the Euros and watching qualifying and friendlies at the moment is a bit, still feels horrible. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
I think it was obviously with the final that we'll obviously won't be covering at some point, but it is a difficult thing to see when you see a good team that just didn't quite make it over the line. But Argentina around this time as well, they were a very, very good side. They'd won the Copa America the previous year, but were beaten in the final of the Confederations Cup the year before, losing 4-1 to Brazil. Brazil's forward line that day is obscene.
Have you got it to hand?
It is Kaká, Ronaldinho, Adriano, and Robinho.
Oh,
I mean, and Ronaldo's not even in the team at this point, so he's just basically on a holiday. I think he only played
on holiday.
Well, that
is what happens with the Brazilian players, isn't it? They get older and then they're just like a sabbatical.
Well, exactly. And I think he only played 5 times for Brazil this year, but he still started for them at the World Cup the next year, and he went out to be one of the top scorers in that tournament, which is really, you think he's kind of finished at that point.
Yeah.
But to still be able to do it at that level is quite ridiculous.
He was a legend, lethal player. So let's get into the good stuff. What we're here for: England versus Argentina. I'll start by reading out the England lineup.
Yeah, sure.
Paul Robinson in goal. We'll comment later.
Yeah.
I'll just read it without comment.
Yeah.
Paul Robinson in goal. Right back Luke Young. Centre backs Rio Ferdinand and John Terry. Left back Wayne Bridge. Midfield, Ledley King sitting in front of the defence with in front of him a trio of Beckham, Lampard, Gerrard. Up front, Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney. The bench, David James, Sol Campbell, Sean Wright-Phillips, Jermaine Defoe, Phil Neville, Alan Smith, Robert Green, Michael Carrick, Jermaine Genius, Peter Crouch, Paul Konchesky, and Joe Cole. Okay. What do you make of that lineup then?
A mixed bag. I'd probably say. Luke Young playing at the time in Gary Neville's absence. Actually, this would end up being his last cap. He'd been playing well at Charlton at the time, but seems a very strange player to kind of have in there, doesn't it?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, if you asked me to name England's right back without looking at it before this game, I would never. I don't even remember Luke Young existing. I'm not going to lie. No offense to Luke Young, but I think that the fullbacks Luke Young and Wayne Bridge. That's very that feels very second string. That's not, maybe fullbacks were less of a role then,
Yeah.
but not less of a role, but less of a crucial role like they are today. But that's very, very weak in my opinion.
I think it's one of those classic things with England as well, which is a bit of a theme where actually England do have a lot of good players in certain positions, but then all of a sudden they'll just have no left backs or no right backs. Like Gary Neville's injured in this game, Ashley Cole's not playing as well, and Ashley Cole really held down that England left side for 10 years really.
I've had heated debates with friends over the years about England legends and what qualifies as an England legend.
Right.
And I would say, and I've said to them, from this era, the only people I would class as England legends would be Rooney, Beckham, Ashley Cole,
Yeah, okay.
Michael Owen, maybe.
Michael. I think it's a bit of revisionism to talk about what Michael Owen actually wasn't that good or didn't achieve a lot, but he's still one of England's all-time top scorers ever.
I think the reason for the heat in that debate would be my non-inclusion of Lampard and Gerrard in there, who I think are two of the greatest English footballers ever, but not England men's team legends.
I think it's maybe moments. You look at that as well. I mean, with moments, there's a lot with Beckham because he had quite a storied career with England and it changed quite a lot. I mean, with Lampard, he probably got over 100 caps, I'm guessing, but there's not these big moments with him and Gerrard, maybe.
It was always a frustrating duo. Ledley King, that feels experimental. What's he doing?
Yeah, it seems very odd. Well, especially when they've got Michael Carrick around this time as well playing.
Oh my God, Michael Carrick just sat on the bench. Just Ledley King play him there. He's a good centre back and he's a really good player. I just think you're trying to compensate there for having to play Lampard, Gerrard, Beckham, Owen, and Rooney.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
I think it was seen as a thing that maybe at the time Tottenham were going through a bit of a spell where he played in midfield for them maybe a little while, but I do remember him filling in at times there, but doing it for England I know it's a friendly game, but this, as we'll come to say, it does not feel like a friendly game whatsoever. And him playing there, and Michael Carrick is quite young at the time. Phil Neville was playing at Everton in centre midfield around the era as well, but Phil Neville in centre midfield for England in 2005 just seems absolutely crazy.
I agree. Lampard and Gerrard, as we just mentioned, absolutely smashing it at club level, as would be the case for years to come. A few questions over Beckham. Should he be playing at this point? Well, we'll see in the game. But I do remember, as much as I love David Beckham, I remember wanting him to stop playing for England long before he actually did. And when he did stop, I wanted him to carry on. It
was weird. He kind of had a weird renaissance coming back to England because it was all in the era of, he went to Madrid and Capello left him out because he said he was going to the MLS. And then he went back to AC Milan a couple of times on loan and did really well. And I remember in the build-up to 2010, there was a big thing of David Beckham is going to go to the tournament and he won't start, but he'll come on to influence games. And then he got injured.
He did go though, didn't he? Wasn't he?
He was
sat on the bench as
just looking really good, and it's just like, why on earth is he there?
Love Beckham, and at this point there was a bit of a question mark hanging over him maybe, but he's the captain. Up front, Owen and Rooney. I love that as a duo. I think it's a shame we didn't get to see more of it because of their age difference and Owen's injuries, obviously, but. If you just think about their skill sets, they complement each other so well. Rooney can do all the playmaking. Owen just needs somebody to do the playmaking. Rooney scores obviously as well, like obviously England's top scorer. I think that's such a good duo. Probably hindered by lack of service because you got people behind them like Lampard and Gerrard who just want to shoot as well and a goal scorers themselves.
And you look at David Beckham, which was at this point for England, he's going through probably his worst spell in terms of he is still an amazing cross with the ball and with set pieces, but contributing to other parts of the game, you feel, unless he's doing one of his raking passes, is not a lot more to his game at this point. Maybe it kind of developed a bit more when he got a bit older and he was a bit more cultured, but I don't think it was a thing of he can keep the ball in midfield, and neither did Gerrard or Lampard, which is, again, we come back to why is no one keeping the ball.
Ledley King,
yeah. Well, we do it today, though.
If only Michael Carrick was on the bench.
I know, But you come back today to players that are for England and not keeping the ball in those kind of big games.
Yeah.
You look at Declan Rice and Phillips now, I do think they're capable of it. But you see in like the Euros final, when Declan Rice goes off, a lot of that physicality goes. And someone like Jordan Henderson, who's definitely got his qualities, is not going to keep the ball that well, as that again saw in the World Cup of just not holding on to it enough in big moments.
Shall we go through the Argentina lineup? You can probably lead on that because I can't pronounce some of the names. I think this is a really strong lineup. I'm excited to hear you read it.
Yeah, the Argentina goalkeeper Abon, and then you have Zanetti at right back, Samuel and Ayala as centre halves, and Sorin as captain. Demichelis playing with Cambiasso and Riquelme in centre midfield, and then you've got Maxi Rodriguez on the right, Crespo and Tevez on the left. A real, as you say, star-studded team, especially for people of our era. And then you still got a couple of players on the bench that
Milito.
People will know. Gabriel Milito. I think that's the brother of Diego, who would go on to be the great inter-striker, really, for that.
I thought that was
really.
him.
Well, he played at Barcelona around the same time, so he was a very, very good player in his own right too. Saviola, who just seemed to be going on forever, but never quite. I don't know, he was such a strange player, Saviola. He played for Barcelona and Real Madrid, a couple of other clubs, and you just think incredible talent, but I don't know, he just never kind of kicked on to that next level.
Colaccini as well.
Colaccini pre-Newcastle days as well. He comes on in the game and he puts himself about a bit, let's say.
I think that's a really strong lineup. I think Cambiasso, Crespo, Zanetti, you could class them all as sort of mini legends, if that makes sense. I think Zanetti probably a top tier legend.
Zanetti definitely, especially with how long he was at Inter and how good he was. I mean, he was playing at left back for Inter in a Champions League final in 2010, a couple of years after this, and it was just not even a question about, well, he's just brilliant still.
Young Carlos Tevez up front, 21 at this time.
Yeah, he's pretty young at this point. I think he's in.
Good looking lad.
Yeah, he's at Corinthians around this time. He's got a very interesting haircut at this point as well. He's got like lines shaved into him like a racing track.
Demichelis.
He's quite young in his international career here. It's one of his first caps, and again, playing in centre midfield, it's like they've got their own Ledley King in there, like something that doesn't quite fit. The lineup's a bit strange anyway. Start of the game, John Motson has it down as a 4-4-2, and as the game goes on, it is just not that whatsoever. They maybe get back into those kind of positions and with Cambiasso on the left when they're defending, but in attack, it is much more Tevez drifting wide, Cambiasso holding, Riquelme just doing whatever the hell he wants, really.
So, as we've kind of mentioned, England versus Argentina is a big rivalry. I remember being 7 years old, France 98, David Beckham getting sent off, Michael Owen scoring that amazing goal. So, for me, that set up a personal sort of rivalry. But then, you'd hear from my dad that there's all this history of Maradona and everything like that. Beckham obviously got redemption for that red card. I would love to cover that game at some point.
Yeah,
was it a 1-0, a penalty?
The penalty against Argentina in 2002 World Cup. Yeah, that's that game. Again, there's so many when you look around that era of, again, Beckham's sending off in France 98 as well. Just a brilliant football game as well.
What, can you remember, like, was this the last time we played them, the 2005 friendly that we're covering?
There may have been another friendly around somewhere else, but they've definitely not met at a tournament that I can remember.
It's going to happen this year. Let's call it World Cup.
Very good chance, isn't it?
We're due like an Argentina or something like that. It feels like even at the last World Cup there was a lot of. I know we played Colombia. Just no proof to back it up, but it feels like we played a lot of European teams on that run, or what have you. We're just, not the big South American dogs, because that is a different kettle of fish altogether. The atmosphere and the hostility and the shithousery.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you get in those games is crazy. So this is the first time they've met since Beckham's redemption. Prickly build up, as you've noted. So, just looking here. John Motson, who's on commentary.
And he's fantastic on commentary, by the way. He is just like a kid in a sweet store. He's fantastic in this.
So, he says that when the Argentinian players arrive on the coach, the players are singing anti-England songs, but he couldn't translate them. Was he joking? Do you think he was serious?
No, I think this it sounds like a classic Motson thing, really, in terms of like having the atmosphere around the game, because when you're watching it, you can see the Argentine fans are really going for it, as are the England fans, but yeah, it still seems very raw, and I don't know if you'd get that kind of players arriving singing songs about the other side, in terms of international football. Maybe Argentina, Brazil, and South American sides, but as an England fan, I can't imagine Declan Rice getting off a coach singing anti-Scottish songs or something.
England aren't the type, but I think it may still happen in football generally. Because everyone hates that England sing, it's coming home, football's coming home. They're like, what the hell are you talking about, England? It's not home.
not
It's
your
everyone's
game, actually.
game.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just like, it's just our song. Why they get really angry, and whenever anyone beats us, they go, "Oh, we stopped them singing that song." And it's like, calm down, mate. We've all got songs. Like,
I know,
it's
yeah.
part of being a football fan.
I think it's just that thing about a nation, and it's a song that's very popular, and it goes, it's a big thing culturally in England and English football, really. And it's maybe just a bit of a, I don't know, maybe a bit of a sneery thing. I don't know.
I think the last minute or so of conversation has been about a bit of that intense rivalry, but John Motson sums it up perfectly by saying there's a bit of needle about the game and
much
in the
so,
stadium. I don't really know what that means, but it does sum it up nice. Graham Lasso, who's on co-coms, makes a mention to having cramp in 1998 after doing Beckham's running for him after he gets sent off, and it's like, I thought that was needless.
Yeah. Also, I don't think it's true either, because I had a look at this as well. So he was playing the opposite wing to David Beckham, who was sent off on 46 minutes, and Lasso came off on 71. And apparently, so it's just like, well, I don't get
With
what's
cramp.
Yeah, and it's apparently, the reason is for him coming off is he had a bad reaction to a caffeine tablet at half time.
Oh, right.
So there's maybe there's cramp in there, but that's I have read that in doing some of the research.
He's projecting, isn't he? He's going, oh, I definitely didn't shit myself at half time because of a caffeine tablet. I was doing Beckham's running for him. That's what needs to be remembered here.
Yeah, and also there's a little bit throughout the game where he seems a bit resentful towards Beckham. I never thought that was a rivalry of any sort. Maybe from like Chelsea days, because he was playing on the left and Beckham on the right at United. But
Yeah. We get to the national anthems, a really top 10 bad rendition of God Save the Queen. It was so out of time, and I don't think I've never watched an England rendition of God Save the Queen and go, you know what, they really nailed that today.
as in the players.
Yeah, it's always bad, and I don't even want to get into a debate about whether they should or shouldn't be singing it on any sort of political level.
No.
I like that they do it, I guess, just
Yeah.
because it makes international football a little bit more special, I think. But yeah, always bad, always out of time. And when you can hear them, like when you can hear the manager, like no mic, no vocal processing or effects, it's just raw camera sound.
I think that's always the problem, is that they actually put the camera right in their face and they keep the sound on vaguely in the background.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's just like, it always does remind me of Mike
I know
Bassett.
you're going to say Mike Bassett.
Mike Bassett when Wacko is just singing it and he's got
With
his
his
broken
broken
jaw.
jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want to see that or absolute silence and concentration. It's nothing in between.
Carlos Tevez takes a leading role in Argentina's rendition of their national anthem.
Mouth wide open as he does it as well. And a really, really bad haircut too. Also on the Argentina bench, you can see Jose Peckerman, who is the Argentina coach. And he looks like he's got someone behind him. Looks like Javier Bardem. He looks like his role from No Country for Old Men. He just looks so sinister behind him. It's just such a strange one.
There is a mention of the Argentinian FA being interested in recruiting Diego Maradona to the
Yep.
position of manager, which we both know does happen.
Well, at the start, they said that Argentina, the FA, are wanting to be part of the coaching team, but it may be,
okay.
but it may be a distraction to Peckerman. I mean, could you just imagine?
Maybe.
Well, even when he was manager, he was basically they moved training to the afternoon so he could sleep.
Yeah,
So he was just always going to be a nuisance, even when he had the country at their best interest and had the whole country behind him. But just being a coach, knocking around, and having to put up with Maradona, basically
my God.
having to be involved in the side, just seems a bit mad.
Yeah, the kits are obviously a big thing. Everyone gets nostalgic, especially now. I think it's like everybody's growing into finding retro kits and what have you.
Yeah.
I don't think this game there's particularly fantastic kits on display.
I like the England one. It's quite simple. It's got the red kind of cross over the shoulder, which I did really like. I always think of like Ferdinand and Owen in that kind of shirt, but the Argentina one is just a bit of nothing really.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that era where Adidas and Nike would make loads of kits for loads of sides and they just make them identical. I always remember in the Euro 2004, there's about 9 teams that have got that Nike kit with like a line across the chest and down, and then the number is in a circle. It felt like everybody was wearing that kit.
Sort of total 90 look.
That's it, yeah. And it's similar here with the Argentina one. It's nothing really special. It's like a blue and grey kind of number.
Yeah, I mean, a kit conversation is probably one for another day, but I do really like the one we wore at the Euros just gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably maybe my favourite that we've had for years. Let's get into the game then.
More about the stadium in a minute when they do come out, but I noticed David Beckham staring straight ahead there, Gary. He wasn't exchanging glances at all with Serene, the Argentine captain, who of course has played against him before, or indeed are many players looking across the tunnel at each other here, because when the Argentina bus arrived at the stadium, they were jumping up and down in it and singing and shouting allegedly some uncomplimentary things about the England team. I couldn't translate it literally, but certainly there's plenty of needle here. And this stadium, in the shadow of the Alps, has a capacity of 30,000, and we estimate, you'll hear the noise, there are up to 10,000 England fans here. 7,000 have got tickets officially, a lot more have come on spec, and it's a ground that was opened less than 3 years ago, but the resident club Stade De Geneve are currently playing here to crowds of less than 2,000 because they were declared bankrupt earlier this year and relegated 2 divisions. So the stadium certainly full for this one as we await the protocol and the national anthems.
So my first observation was the England band. Again, still not talking about football just yet. The England band were ridiculously loud. Are they still? Because I think what it is that I would watch games in this era, obviously on the TV, and now I watch them in a pub. Yeah. And you don't really hear the sound, they don't blast the sound because there's no point.
Yeah.
So things like the England band and stuff, I'm a bit oblivious to at the moment. They're surely still there, right?
I think they're still going. Yeah, how popular they are, I'm a bit unsure, but yeah, I'm not a big fan. Although when they're kind of there in this kind of era, I did quite enjoy them. But now I don't know. I find them a bit grating. Maybe if you do hear them.
Yeah. There's not. I mean, the first 10 minutes or so of the game, it's rapid. It's high energy. Something that I noted is that as soon as Beckham gets the ball, and it's like he's setting up for almost like the drop shot that Johnny Wilkinson used to do. It's just like, right, get it on my right foot and launch it. But the crowd know that it's like a wrestler going to do the special move.
Yeah, absolutely. It is just something really interesting when you see him straight away, lines up, looks up, and there's a couple of occasions really early on where you can see he's just looking for Rooney and Owen on that left-hand side, really, because he's drifting out a little bit more to that. And yeah, the first 10 minutes just absolutely flash past.
There's a Riquelme chance. John Motson notes that, he says Riquelme is the man around who Argentina operate now. and my head thought, Messi. Yeah. When's Messi going to come into it? He had actually already made his debut in the same year. Fun fact about his debut, which I didn't know until I did that little bit of research. He was actually sent off 1 minute into his Argentina debut for retaliation to a tackle against Hungary.
I mean, what on earth must they have been doing to him? Because he doesn't seem like he's a very needly player, does he?
No. I mean, well, he seems the opposite, to be honest. He seems that sort of Gary Lineker famously never got a yellow card.
Yeah.
Apparently, Messi, you do hear things that he's a bit of a dick in training, Messi.
Yeah, you kind of heard little bits about the end of the Guardiola era at Barcelona where maybe he was a bit difficult to work with and little parts. But when you're literally probably the best player ever, I guess that's the idea of you build a side around that person, don't you? And even around that ego with other players like Ronaldo or whatever.
So, as we mentioned, a manic start. England actually have a goal disallowed on around 6 minutes. Michael Owen, do you want to talk us through?
Yeah, it's a nice chip from Rooney into Owen. It's just offside, but it's a nice header that goes past the goalkeeper. It's a nice early sign of that's England's kind of plan, really. Getting the ball wide, Michael Owen still being a predator in the area. His pace has deserted him by this point, but he's still lethal, really, going around. And he's around this time playing at Newcastle as well. He was just starting to get into the flow of things there. Started his time there pretty well, but again, injuries just stopped that in its tracks.
When we were talking about the lineup, I mentioned that I like Owen and Rooney as a duo, and that's an early example of why they work so well together. Not well enough, as we'll see over the years to come. But John Motson then mentions the World Cup draw. At that time, oh my God, I know we've mentioned that this England squad definitely has its faults, but I was so excited because I believed Wayne Rooney could single-handedly win the World Cup for England in 2006.
We're kind of in that first Rooney era, aren't we? As the Beckham and Owen era is kind of being phased out around this time, and you look at what Rooney did at the Euros in 2004 and the way he's coming into the team now, and even the way John Motson talks about him, it's just like he's this new person that's coming in, just like he's ridiculous. I think Rooney's good in this game, but the way Motson talks about him as if he's just like runs the whole thing, and it's just maybe that frantic energy that he brought with him a lot of the time that England didn't have previously.
I mean, you could say though that he is England's greatest player ever. So it is justified despite his you know. He never really did it on the big stage for England. I've got to say that.
And I think that's an interesting thing when we said earlier about Gerrard and Lampard with these big moments that they maybe never had for England. Again, Wayne Rooney scored very rarely at tournaments. You'd say the Euros.
John Stones has got more World Cup goals than Wayne Rooney, I think. Didn't he score like 2 against Panama or something?
Panama, yeah. But that's what's so strange about it. And you look at Rooney, England's top scorer ever, and is it because it's in the era of England playing so many games and qualifying games that he plays in all of them, and a great servant, but for England and for club as well, but probably seen as a greater Manchester United player than England, and maybe there's not that love for him as well.
I don't think there's love for him anywhere because he left Everton. And obviously he went back, but he left Everton when they would have loved to have seen him play his career there.
But even Everton fans would go, look, they were not going to be able to keep hold of him. So
I get that. I was more trying to say, I don't think he gets full love from Everton fans. I don't think he gets full love from Man United fans. Where else did he play? I mean, America. There's no point in even really.
Yeah,
they probably love him.
He did well there, but it was of the era of kind of like you go to America and people only really notice you if you do something great or awful.
Yeah, I mean, maybe at Derby, if he can keep them up, he'll become a legend there of some form. I mean, he's a legend in a lot of places, but it's that love, like you say. There's not. He has a very complicated career, Wayne Rooney.
I think for a good long period that was the case, and I think in going back to Everton with what he did as well, I think maybe that's the thing that will be see him again, and one day probably becoming Everton manager.
Yeah.
At the time of recording, he's
doing a good job.
He's still at Derby. He's somehow got them off the bottom of the table at the moment, and it'd be great to see what he can do. There's a moment that comes up pretty shortly now where Frank Lampard goes straight through the back of Riquelme.
Well, it's that famous needle. We do see a bit of needle. Yeah, not a yellow card for Lampard.
How is it not given?
Oh, no, yeah, crazy. I think the referee may be just going, if I give it so early, then, we're going to get 4 sendings off this game.
Which he, again, in today's, I know it's one of the today's standards, but it's a scissors straight from behind, and you just think, what? How is that not a yellow? I know with today's eyes it's slightly different, but...
Beckham gets shoved to the floor as well, so Argentina are giving it back. Argentina get a chance. Zanetti cuts back for Maxi Rodriguez. Paul Robinson with a tip over. Good keeper, Paul Robinson. I think we'll probably come on to him a bit more. So... Well, actually, while we're on Robinson, he did play the majority of the games for England this year. David James played 2, Paul Robinson played 9, and Robinson would start at the World Cup.
Solid keeper. I always liked Paul Robinson. He was at Spurs at the time. I think the problem is when it fell off at Robinson, it fell off very quickly at the top level. You look at, I think it was his mistake against Croatia a couple of years after this, where Gary Neville scored the own goal. I think I always remember that game for being there was a big sign for Borat in the background. And it was like it's almost like he's just being mocked for this. It was a bobble on the pitch. It was a bit unfair, but straight after that, England were back to having a keeper problem with playing people like Scott Carson quite a lot, and it went all the way through till Joe Hart solidified it for a couple of years.
God, sorry, I hate Joe Hart so much. Just disappointment is the main thing. I was like so sure he would be, and I love Jordan Pickford, but Paul Robinson's picking the ball out of his net on 11 minutes because there's an Argentina goal, but it's disallowed. Why?
So there's a free kick from Riquelme right on top of the far post for Crespo. The only replay that they show is that Crespo's maybe pushing Lampard. He may handled it as well, but it's a bit soft, and they only show like one angle of it too. It's maybe he's on the back of him a little bit, but I think not much.
The reason they don't really show too many replays is because England are straight back to it. It's like, all right, we've both had one each. Next goal actually counts, and England are straight back at it, and you can hear the roar of the crowd because this is England exceeding expectations. Even though you were hopeful that they would really do well at the World Cup because of Rooney, actually playing Argentina and actually taking the game to them is a really good sign when you consider losing to Northern Ireland and stuff like that as well.
I think so, and it was trying to get a bit of feeling back into the England side, like you say, after the disappointment of the Euros. The qualifying was quite unspectacular at times. Again, it was really, really tight with Poland, and they only beat Poland on the last day, I want to say, as well, to make sure they qualified. So, but yeah, there's chances that end up coming both sides, really. The pace is just ridiculous of this game.
There was a advertising sign that I noticed that for bargain booze.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if there's bargain boozes in Geneva, but the tagline was making life richer for the poorer, spelt like pouring a drink. And I thought, it just stuck out to me as a bit of a Haha, we'll keep you subdued with drink, buy it cheap from bargain booze, you idiots. Oh, maybe that's just because I'm hungover. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, so at this point now, Argentina, their forward line starting to show its signs of quality.
It's a bit strange, really, because Argentina fans already are olaying their passes. So it's 0-0 at this point, and that's how easy they're keeping the ball. And it doesn't feel great because Lampard and Gerrard, they're always a bit behind the ball, or they're not quite to it. And with only Ledley King there supposedly defending the back four, it's like, what's going on here? But as we'll see, this just becomes a constant problem with England, doesn't it? Lampard and Gerrard, the debate will always just be there of what they should have done.
I think this is a good example, this game as well, of that. Lasso, around 17 minutes in, talks about just how important that Ledley King role is that we've discussed.
I think the Ledley King role is important, just not with Ledley King in it.
It's not the Ledley King role.
And he was a brilliant centre-half, genuinely a fantastic player for Spurs, and probably didn't get enough games for England because, again, England around this time have ridiculous centre-halves. Sol Campbell's on the bench, Ledley King's playing in the wrong position. It's just before
Ferdinand
Woodgate.
and
Well, it's
Where's
that
Carragher?
wrong. Carragher would have been, well, I think he's just won the
Champions
European-
League?
Yeah, he's won the Champions League around this point, but he just can't get in the England team because it's so strong.
Oh, well.
It's just one of those things. But again, you look at right back and left back. Once one of the players is gone, there's just nobody there anymore.
And there is, approaching 20 minutes, I've noticed that there is no width in this England team at all.
No.
You've got Beckham just doing whatever the hell he likes, Lampard doing whatever the hell he likes, Gerrard doing whatever the hell he likes, fullbacks who are just terrified and being run at by quick Argentinian players, and Ledley King with his faulty knees trying to. I mean, I don't expect him to bring width, but just the kind of on the back foot. I feel.
I think there's just no organisation with the England side at around this point because you've got a Beckham going, well, I can play centre midfield. I mean, they've kind of got Gerrard playing on the left, but he's not really playing on the left.
So we're about 20 minutes in at this point. We've had a goal disallowed for each side. England trying and taking the game to Argentina, but Argentina are starting to get a grip on it. I think over the next 10 minutes, it kind of evens out and we see a bit of Rooney coming into it. There's an England break on 22 minutes. Gerrard makes a cross, just a rubbish, pointless cross. That is all England done for so many years, is these float. Not my problem. I'm just floating the ball away.
I think Ferdinand was really guilty of this around this period, where he just come up to the halfway line if he were chasing a game, and he just like plonk a ball into the penalty area, and it's not really aimed at anybody. There's no real pace on it. I think there was a bit of an issue around this time.
You mentioned that England, just on that width thing. Excuse me, I'm terrible. Could have played a back three with Beckham as a right wing back. Do you want to go into that theory, you crackpot theory?
Well, it's one of those things where you kind of look back with today's eyes and you see how kind of tactics evolved, and a player like David Beckham, such talent and such ability, and you think, well, where would he actually play today these days? And it's like, well, he's got the running want. He was never the quickest player, but he's got the want and the ability to get up and down the pitch. So you think, well, would he? I mean, the closest thing you get to him today is a Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Oh,
incredible ability on the ball.
He's not got the pace, though, has he, of somebody like that? I actually struggle to think where Beckham would play for, like, if you were, say, plonk him into a top 4 Premiership side and you just do a like-for-like replacement, I struggle to see where he would fit.
I think he'd have to end up playing him in a right back role, really. And again, he wasn't quick, but he was quick enough, Beckham. I don't think it was ever like, oh, he's just been absolutely skinned there. But you look at Arnold, how good he is going forward. He's not the best defender in the world either, but Liverpool are so good defensively with who they put there in midfield and how they cover themselves. That's where they have it. I mean, I've kind of noted it down here for what England could have maybe looked at, and you would have a Campbell, Ferdinand and Terry playing centre-half.
It allows you to get another one of those, as we just mentioned, really good centre-backs in.
And you haven't got to worry then as much about, well, if we're playing Gerrard and Lampard in the middle, they can still go forward. You'd have, like, in this game for who's available, away in Bridge, Ashley Cole was always good going forward, but immaculate defensively. And then you're able to have Michael Carrick maybe in front of that back three.
Just play Ledley King.
That's another centre-half playing there too.
Yeah, I think what stopped that would probably be the Beckham fame, and I think he would have taken it as a dig if he was asked to play as a right wing back.
Also, that wasn't what was happening tactically at the time. It was kind of your 4-3-3s, like we say, with Mourinho bringing in that side. I remember Man United played a lot of 4-3-3. Liverpool would have done it around the same time as well. So three at the back just wasn't in fashion. You just never saw sides really playing it.
25 minutes in, Lampard has a chance from a corner which goes just wide. We spot a Wolves flag.
Yep, as always, wherever you go in the world or even out of space, there will be a Wolves flag there. So I think maybe that's something we can kind of keep looking at over the period of time. Do we see any Wolves flags there? Because they are everywhere.
Yeah, you always see them. 26 minutes, Luke Young gets a yellow card. He's just... I think this game's a bit much for him. Just after that, around 28 minutes in, a lovely cross from Beckham, which, as we've said, for whatever he can, whatever his issues are, he will always deliver a good ball and therefore make a good chance.
I think that's the thing you see with England these days. It's not incredible set pieces. I know at the World Cup a couple of years ago they'd done really well with kind of that love train idea of getting players all together, bunched up, and then going into their separate ways.
Love train, yeah.
But like you wouldn't say there's many great set piece takers in that England starting side. I mean, Ward-Prowse doesn't really play for England a lot, and apart from
Trent.
Yeah, I'll give it. I don't think
he didn't play in the tournament, so you can't.
He's not even got that many caps. He's probably only got 11 caps as we speak.
Yeah,
probably.
Southgate's a big Trippier fan, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe he should get Luke Young back or not. A really nice chance for England just before the half hour. Steven Gerrard, again for all of his faults, showing his quality. I should stop saying all of his faults. I don't want to dig him out too hard. And let's take the game as it comes. 30 minutes in. He makes an amazing chance for Rooney. I'm surprised Rooney misses it, but it's a lovely outside of the boot pass.
Yeah, Gerrard kind of picks up the ball on the left-hand side, plays a lovely outside of the boot pass to Rooney, as you say, and he's kind of very quickly one-on-one with the goalkeeper. It's a lovely chip, looking to try and get past the goalkeeper, and it just hits the post and comes back, really.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
think maybe a bit harsh saying I don't know how Rooney did. Rooney does a lot of work there. Actually, it was a good chance, but he makes it a good chance. And I was more surprised that Owen didn't get the rebound. That's Owen all over, isn't it? That little whip it in the box.
I think this is also very much a prelude to John Motson absolutely losing his shit in the middle of the game as well.
Yeah,
the voice that he always comes up with straight away here is just. Yeah, it's just fantastic. He's brilliant throughout, is Motson.
Well, you can't blame him for losing his shit because we're 30 minutes in and we're going to go through to half time now. And it's a crazy end to the first half. 30 minutes, Riquelme still killing off Luke Young like he's nothing. A Rooney break and a penalty shout on 31 minutes. England starting to control now. So Argentina did have that early power over the game, but England, last 10 minutes, Rooney's coming into it. But...
As always with England, just starting to get a foot in the game, and they can see the goal. So Tevez receives the ball in the middle and turns Steven Gerrard wide out to Maxi Rodriguez, who beats Wayne Bridge quite easily and crosses the ball in, deflects off Ferdinand, kind of falls to Crespo, and he heads it in, really.
Right, it's going to be a goal! Hernan Crespo has done it for Argentina, the Chelsea man. And by his standards, it turned out to be a simple chance. And the South Americans lead after 34 minutes.
It's really bad England play. A few individual errors from Beckham, Rooney and Gerrard, who we've praised and ridiculed in equal measure. Rodriguez does Wayne Bridge as well, so both our fullbacks being sort of exposed. I don't know if Ashley Cole could have made more of that.
He was a very good one-on-one defender, Ashley Cole, wasn't he? It was rare you kind of saw him get skinned or even got kind of go past, really.
And Graham Lasso actually at this point mentions that Wayne Bridge hasn't played for a year.
Yeah, it really seems strange playing Wayne Bridge, as Lazo says. He hasn't played in over a year. Only a few reserve games at Chelsea and a sub-appearance in the first team before the game. Just what on earth are England doing? This is what I mean with no players at left back apart from their one. It's just crazy. But the man who scores, Crespo, he's in a bit of a strange period at the minute. He's come to England doing so well in Italy. Always heard about this great striker. Did all right for Chelsea in his first year.
I thought that was going to be an amazing signing. Same as when they signed Shevchenko, really.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with Crespo. He had a few more bites of the cherry, didn't he? You had 12 goals in 31 games, was okay. Went out to AC Milan, scored in the Champions League final after playing for them. Comes back, he gets 13 and 42 from the research and just goes to Inter Milan. Just a very, very strange career at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A really good player, though, as we say, and probably in that mini legend category I mentioned earlier. So England are 1-0 down, and Gerrard has a lovely effort, really, from about 30 yards. I've criticised him and Lampard quite a lot. I think he's been the stronger out of the two, and it's a good effort. Was it saved by the keeper? Is it go just wide?
I think it doesn't actually count for a corner, but there's a touch by the keeper in there, definitely.
Yeah. At this point, I think it's mentioned by the commentary team that England at some point will make some substitutions, and this raised memories of something that I'd completely forgotten about, which is just the era of let's change the entire team at half time. What do you make of that era?
It's a horrible era, really, when you think about it. I remember there was games where there was players having the captain's armband, and there's 4 different captains on one game. I remember it was not great. But there's 11 changes in the Australia game. I think it's the one that I always remember, where he said, "I will make 11 changes at half time." England were 2-0 down. I think they ended up losing the game 3-1. But the second half team really outplays the starters.
Was that Rooney's debut?
Maybe. I think Francis Jeffers scored, so that's definitely of that era of like a lot of players like Genus and Jeffers, who were preliminary England players coming up. And
I think that the making all of these changes, it rubbed people up the wrong way, England fans, and I think it contributed to just this feeling of Sven is probably nearing the end. I mean, you look back and it's a bit crazy that he decided to do all of these changes. He's playing players out of position. He's playing Wayne Bridge when he hasn't played for a year, maybe out of circumstances, but quite a bold manager, Sven.
Yeah, but also what he did in this era is he made FIFA change the substitute law in the game, just because he was making so many substitutes. There was now a maximum rule of 6 substitutes you can make in a friendly, and that's because he was just giving players caps all the while.
But Motson does say there'll be no bringing on substitutes just for the sake of it tonight, which does turn out to be true. 37 minutes in, a couple of minutes after Gerrard's shot, England actually equalise. Yeah. So it's our first England goal on Is This England podcast. Is it England to score? Not really. Sometimes the
first England goal. Yeah, that's what we get to talk about at least. But
great finish by Rooney. Little side foot and a bobble.
Oh, Beckham with the flick on. England have equalised, and it's Wayne Rooney whose first half performance certainly merits the goal, and one number 9 here replies to the other.
Yeah, it's nice. Lampard plays a chip into Owen. Ayala kind of balloons the air in the ball in the air. Beckham heads it on, being quite physical in this, and it just drops perfectly for Wayne Rooney to side foot it in. Like you say, a bit of a bobble, but it's kind of like almost a bobble on purpose.
Yeah, it's a nice finish. I would say that actually rapidly equalising after conceding in a big game is very not England.
No, the other way around usually, isn't it?
Yeah, it's usually the other way around.
There's a brilliant line from Motson. He says, "And one number 9 here replies to the other." I just think that's so nice. He's getting very excited when he goes, "The World Cup starts here."
Yes, it does. Well, it doesn't, but it does. I mean, what it doesn't, does it?
No. But obviously, Motson's got really, really excited by this point, because on 40 minutes, there's Riquelme's on the ball going towards England's area. He takes out 3 players with one pass. Tevez lets it go through his legs, and Motson's just shouting, "Dummy, dummy, dummy!"
Yeah, Motson does talk about England needing to take. It's like, get Wayne Bridge out of here.
Yeah.
Get Konchesky or Phil Neville on. I think the commentators are going in on Wayne Bridge, and yeah. I mean, it's noticeable that England are suffering in the fullback positions.
I think so. And again, it comes back to that. He's a left-sided player. He's just going to have to play. Around this time, Wayne Bridge had played quite a lot for England on the left wing. So him and Ashley Cole had played against, I think it was Macedonia, I remember, a qualifying game years and years ago. And they actually played a lot more together than I thought they had. I thought it was just that one game, but it was quite a common thing of Wayne Bridge is just our left-sided player, and he's supported by Ashley Cole, really, but it just doesn't seem to fit in this era, does it?
Maybe it's just playing next to John Terry.
Well, yeah, it's just before
couldn't be bothered. Not much happens in the last 5 minutes. It kind of calms down, and the players are straight down the tunnel. Go down in the team groups. No handshakes or talking to the opposition. Not a friendly atmosphere. It's a serious game, and it's one apiece at half time.
Absolutely.
England do make a sub. They bring on Paul Konchesky, who wins his second cap. I really don't have much to comment on with Paul Konchesky. I feel like in Hodgson's era, it became a bit of a meme.
At Liverpool.
when Hodgson was England manager, weren't people saying, "Oh, he signs him everywhere and he's going to play him"? For
He's going to
England
bring
now?
him back for England. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's because he'd done well for Hodgson at Fulham clearly, and it just didn't work out at Liverpool, did it? I think he may have only lasted 6 months, really, maybe about the same time as Hodgson did. But he was a solid enough player in his time, but he was never going to be again. Him in this England team just seems really, really strange.
So just the one sub, a meaningful sub. Wainbridge has been having a torrid time of it. But a big sub stat which blew my mind that John Motson says is this is the 298th substitution Sven's made in 59 games.
I mean, I'm awful at maths, but that's not good, is it?
That is ridiculous. That can't be right.
It must be.
I'm terrible at maths, and I'm not going to waste time on the podcast by trying to do the sums. But it feels like that's about 6 subs a game.
This isn't. Is this maths?
Is this maths? Is this right? Lasso drops a bombshell here. Mentions that his wife and her mother. No. So Graham Lassalle's wife and Graham Lassalle's wife's mother are both Argentinian, so he's got to watch his tongue tonight. But he does mention it's a great advert for the game because it's a mixed crowd.
There's fans just sat amongst each other, isn't it? Which I don't know. I just don't. Maybe that could or couldn't happen today. But an Argentina-England game where the fans are just mixed with each other, I just feel like that is just destined for failure.
With Needle, we've already established that there's Needle.
With the pre-existing Needle that's there, yeah.
A little mention for Pardew.
I know, yeah. Alan Pardew mentioned as an up-and-coming manager at West Ham. I mean, if that doesn't date this game, I don't know what does.
The
really.
Graham Potter maybe of that era.
Oh my God, that's such a disservice to Graham Potter and his good work, isn't it? Don't know. Maybe in 15 years we'd just be like, they were talking about Graham Potter being the good manager.
Well, that's it. That's the point I was trying to make. Really, who knew Pardew would go on to be Pardew?
Well, yeah, exactly, the king.
Yeah. We're in the second half now. Yellow Frank, big dirty Frank Lampard gets his yellow, which has been coming 47 minutes in. I think he's having a shocking game so far.
Yeah, it's a really late lunge on Rodriguez, isn't it? It's not a good challenge at all. And again, obviously, when he should have already been booked, I mean, BT would just do a 20-minute piece around this with Peter Walton saying that the referee was right.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more of this these days around, well, this was a foul, this was ridiculous. And, not that this game's kind of talked about in great sense of, well, every detail of it is remembered. But, I mean, they'd be talking about, well, how is Lampard stayed on the pitch, really, at this point.
Yeah, Argentina just after that have almost the hand of God too.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? As the ball comes in and Sorin from close range, the handball header, on a couple of watches, it's a bit hard to see what's happened, but immediately you see Paul Robinson just shouting at Serene as he's kind of running up the pitch, actually.
Not again.
Not on me.
I'll chop your hand off next time. Yeah, I'm not being that guy.
I'm not accepting this. This is unacceptable. There's a bit of nice play that comes on afterwards with Lampard and Rooney. Lampard has a shot blocked. Luke Young's getting forward at this point, but he just looks terrified whenever he's on the ball, really.
Yeah, it's not ideal, these. But I think maybe sort of from Gary Neville just being the guy, and then it's like there's no number 2 almost. I don't think there was much challenge for Neville. I could be wrong.
No, the people who kind of went there at tournaments you didn't see for ages, and then when Gary Neville stopped playing for England, it became a bit of a problem position again. You had Glenn Johnson playing a lot there, who again had his own up and down career. I mean, he must have been at Chelsea around this era, Glenn Johnson, or Liverpool.
Yeah,
would have been around. Must have been Chelsea.
West Ham before that, or
he
did
was
he
at
go
West
later?
Ham, then moved to Chelsea. I think he was around that, and then he went to Port. Actually, maybe in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
In that era of just when. Remember when everyone was at Portsmouth?
Yeah.
Sol Campbell was just there. You know, Carnu, all these other amazing players.
Did Sven ever rock up at Portsmouth like later on?
No, I remember he was at Notts County, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Big Sol was there as well.
Yeah. And obviously he managed Leicester as well for a bit, didn't he, Big Sven?
He did, yeah. Again, I think he had Darius Vassell with him too.
Just a random one. You were talking about problem positions there. If you could pick one player from the current England squad that we have and drop it into this team or this squad,
Yeah.
have you any thoughts on who that would be and why?
I think the one that jumps out to me from the issue that is clear in England's midfield. I mean, you'd love to see Declan Rice in that team, wouldn't you?
Oh, that's a good one.
I think someone like a Declan Rice or a Phillips, the person who's going to do the dirty stuff, but you look at someone like Rice who's able to actually run with the ball, bring it forward, pass it incredibly well, always in the right position. I mean, Lampard and Gerrard would have just loved to have played with him, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I look at the fullbacks and I think maybe Trippier.
Yeah,
You know,
Trippier.
I feel like he could have fit into this side. He's got quite a traditional style of football, but he's got really good qualities. But yeah, I think Declan Rice is a good one. We're not exactly struggling in the attacking department.
No.
Just the defence. And leading off from that, 53 minutes in, Argentina take the lead. A goal from Riquelme.
About that is ungentlemanly conduct.
Absolutely. Now, is Riquelme going to try and test Robinson from here? He chips it in, and there's De Michelis, and it's over the line, and Argentina have scored. And Samuel was right in there, as well as De Michelis, and Argentina are 2-1 up.
It's another set piece. I remember we suffered one of these in St Etienne against them. It's a well-worked free kick. Samuel gets up, wins the ball, beats everybody.
Yes, it's Samuel's goal. It was over the line before they followed it in. Walter Samuel of Inter Milan will claim it, even though it was finished off there just in case by Ayala. And Argentina are back in front.
Nick, have your moments. I know you want to talk about this.
It's just horrible defending from England. So Riquelme has a free kick about 30, 40 yards out from goal. Chips the ball into the box. Konchesky just looks like he's lost entirely. He loses Samuel at the far side, headed back across goal, and Ayala taps it in. By today's standards, looking at it, maybe it's offside. Maybe it's one of those ones where today's standards, you clearly go, well, that's offside when you first look at it again, but maybe with the lines and actually the thickness of the lines changing these days, it's a bit different with VAR, but England have got no one to blame for themselves for this. The organisation at the back is just ridiculous. So England are all over the place. There's only 4 players back in with England defending. Yeah. Argentina have got 5 players in the box.
So we're purposely letting ourselves be outnumbered in the box.
Immediately there's a problem there.
Yeah.
Owen's marking no one. Why Michael Owen's even in the penalty area, I've got no idea.
You've put a picture in the notes that we've got, and you could see. I just know who Owen is because he's by far the shortest man in the box.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we take notes before a game, and I can see how enraged I was because I'll just read mine. Absolutely piss poor a game from England. This is so overdramatic. Centre backs need to stand up and be counted. No idea where John Terry is.
John Terry's in the wall. Why is John Terry in the wall? So again, Owen's marking no one. Konchesky has 2 men he's got to watch at the far post. He loses one of them immediately. Ferdinand has Serene and Ayala in the middle.
You've got 3 centre-backs on the pitch, and Rooney.
And
you could do a job.
But one of the centre-halves is in the wall. We've already established that. But the problem is Ferdinand's got 2 people. He leaves Ayala, and then Young's got 2 men as well. Ledley King's in the wall as well. So
That's what I mean. So 2 centre-backs in the wall. Michael Owen, oh my God, what is happening here?
I mean, yeah.
That's going to be on the manager, surely.
Well, yeah, or it's just one of those things of it'll be all right on the night. Like, these are the guys that are there, but there can't be a tactic. Sven couldn't have gone, you know what, actually, let's have Michael Owen defending one of the players forward.
Yeah, so England are behind. Gerrard and Beckham kind of switch into I'll do it then mode. They're very much just like, right, give me the ball, I'll do it. But it's going to take a lot more than that, I think.
There's one last thing quickly on that set piece as well. So Lasso says, it's a bit of clever play from the Argentinians. This is a lovely set piece, just like we conceded like back in '98. This is no way a clever set piece. This is just the ball coming over to the far side and someone heading it across. The game he's talking about, it was like a free kick, or maybe there's a shot, maybe it's going to be a cross. They play it behind the wall and Zanetti smashes it into the top corner. That's a nice bit of work they've been working on for years. Yeah. This is just a lofted ball. It's not like a dangerous Beckham cross. Like Riquelme just chips it in. It's just so annoying. But yeah, we come into that era now where it's Beckham. England make changes now, and it's just what on earth is going on.
So 58 minutes, just is that 5 minutes or 3 minutes after the goal? Joe Cole comes on for Ledley King.
Yeah,
that seems very random to me.
Yeah,
so it's like, okay, we're losing. We need to chase the game. I get that, but how's the team going to work then? Because it's not a like-for-like replacement. So where's Joe Cole going to sit? Because there's no wingers, and he's a winger.
Well, Joe Cole's. Well, I think they're changing it slightly. They've just gone Gerrard and Lampard both in the middle now. Like not even pretending Ledley King's protecting them anymore. Beckham's kind of playing wide out on the right, but as the game comes on, Beckham's just playing wherever he wants again. There's a moment later on where you see Lampard and Gerrard sat in the middle, and then David Beckham is on the left wing, essentially. He's walked across his midfield team, and he's just playing next to there. And it's just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's starting to look a bit grim for England. Joe Cole comes on. I mean, at the time, a truly exciting talent.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it felt like Joe Cole had been around forever, really. It was like, early 2000s, you'd kind of heard about him coming through the West Ham side, and it was around here where it was a big push for actually getting him in the side. It was kind of like the Grealish of what we've got today, where it's like we just play him because he's going to change the game, and it was very, very similar for Joe Cole in this era too. I know when I think he got his chance in the World Cup in the Sweden game, he scored
one of the best England goals ever, I'd say.
But quite forgettable as well in terms of it didn't really count for anything.
No,
but it's
it
just a
didn't.
ridiculous hit at the time.
61 minutes in now, just over an hour gone. England are really struggling. They're losing. They're struggling to create anything. This is very England at this point. We've had our chance. We've given it our best shot, but we're going to lose. Really, that's the way it feels.
The only thing that I feel like England could do is have shots from long range at this point, because their goalkeeper is awful.
Yeah,
he makes I think there's one good save coming up in a bit from Owen that's quite rebound, like straight away he just makes a good save. But some of the efforts he's parring off and going out and pushing back into the area is terrible, really.
Yeah, Joel Cole does make a quite a positive impact, though, I think. And as you mentioned there, if you one of your best tactics can be shooting from range, then Lampard and Gerrard playing as well.
Well, yeah.
So maybe there is hope, because as I say, Cole comes on and he's making a difference. He starts creating. He's direct. He's running at players. He's doing nice deliveries. He doesn't seem to have like an ego or somebody's in my position. He's like, give me the ball and I'll play football sort of thing. So 65 minutes in, England do step it up now. They really are trying. I've said a lot of negative things about them, but you do feel that they can score, because they start to get the ball a bit more. They get, Michael Owen's anonymous, but he's always there. Joe Cole's on, so
it's a really strange one, isn't it? Argentina at this point have clearly been the better side, but there's just something about it where England are making chances. There's a couple of chances from corners, and I think Lampard snatches at a shot or two where you feel like if he's in a Chelsea shirt, he absolutely buries them. But I think we've both said in this, Michael Owen barely gets a touch in the game. His pace has long deserted him, and England not even trying to look for him over the top anymore. That used to be the tactic of just Beckham look for Owen's run, play the ball there, and the other players will do the same. It's not even like he's coming short. He's just kind of occupying space, really. And he's not a big enough presence and to do that. And they can't even think, well, we'll play really high up now, because he's not going to run in behind him anymore.
he just needs a chance, really, though, doesn't he? But maybe we'll get to that. Maybe we won't. Joe Cole gets a yellow card. It makes the Lampard one, the one that wasn't in the first half, look very strange again. Riquelme, running things, as they say.
It's just ridiculous. He has the ball on the string at times, and England can't just seem to get anywhere near him. I know, nothing against Ledley King, but he was supposed to be the player that either looks after the back four or looks after their most dangerous player in Riquelme. And I know he's not on the pitch anymore, so this is just making more and more space for Riquelme, but he's playing it in between people's legs at times. He's just playing 1-2s all the while. You forget what a really, really good player he was, and just so important for them too.
Yeah, this is around the time, about 68 minutes gone, where Beckham is doing... It's a passion show, isn't it? He's doing whatever the hell he wants. He's running to the left, as you say. He's playing across Gerrard and Lampard. But England are going for it. They get a free kick on 72 minutes. Beckham takes. I mean, you'd always have an expectation that something would come from a Beckham free kick.
This is the big save for me from...
Yeah.
So Beckham has a free kick about 30 yards out. The keeper kind of parries it. It goes straight into Michael Owen. And again, Motson just screams Owen, because he's just like, this has to go in. And it's a really, really good save around the post, but the keeper's made a good save, but he's made it. He's made that chance for Owen, and he's managed to right it.
With Beckham and Owen, you know how like sometimes you just form, well, maybe you don't because you're not a mentalist like me, but you kind of form opinions and you stick to them, and they'll always come up after you've had a few beers and you're doing football talking down the pub. Yeah. I've always said, and probably wrong, but whatever, I'll keep saying it. In this sort of golden generation, I think England underperformed so badly. I would say the only actual elite players that we had for a good few years, maybe in the years leading up to this game,
I think so, yeah,
would be Beckham and Owen, and I think the proof is that they're both signed for Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think it's definitely in that 2000s period, like 2000 to 2004, probably. It was kind of them carrying the England side that, you had Heskey playing quite a lot. You had, again, Steven Gerrard was just coming onto the scene. Lampard wasn't quite there yet.
Rooney wasn't there. You had, again, just not many great players around the side. I mean, the centre-halves were good, but they weren't ever going to be the ones that won England games. Whenever you watched an England game, it was always Beckham and Owen have scored, or they've set one up for each other. Yeah, maybe I need to change my argument to not... Because, but
you're
right. The golden generation is what comes just after. Well, the speech marks. Golden generation is what comes just after. So Lampard, Gerrard, and Rooney are elite, but England were carried by Beckham and Owen for a long time.
But when you look at that, what the term golden generation always is, it's always put on teams. They never put it on themselves. But also, you never see a golden generation really win a lot.
No, it's right.
You look at the Portugal golden generation of around this time, same period as well. You look at Belgium currently as well. Have won absolutely nothing with like the best set of players they've ever put together too.
Yeah, England are really pushing still. Obviously, that was a good chance made by Beckham's free kick and the save from the keeper. A little bit of time wasting from Argentina on 73 minutes. Cambiasso goes down for a while. I hate it. I hate that. Like when you're watching England in a big game and the other team are time wasting and you're losing. Obviously, this is a friendly, but like World Cup, I think back to that Colombia game, which we should definitely do one day.
Yeah,
that was just horrible.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because in that game, the Colombia game, obviously there was England had done well, but they couldn't really finish them off. But it was just kicking and time wasting for a lot of it. By the end at this point as well, I think there's a bit as well in this where Graham Lasseau says, "Oh, David Beckham there, showing a bit of his tricks that he's learned over in Madrid, and it's a clear foul on him. Someone just shoves him over, and he's like, oh yeah, he's
learned how to dive by going to play in a foreign league.
Yeah, that's essentially what Lasseau says. But like Sarin just pushes him over.
I'm sorry, Lasseau, but your name's Lasseau. you know. What, that's not the most British name, is it? If he's dissing other countries and going all Brexit about it,
with his Argentinian family still,
and his Argentinian family, it's a good
good
thing. But don't be so don't be so Brexity on Beckham. So 75 minutes gone now. Motson notes England. Owen hasn't had much luck. I think we've both sort of noted that as well. I mentioned that Rooney's behaviour has been exemplary.
Yeah, he's not really kicked anybody yet, has he?
Yeah, that was always the worry, wasn't it?
I think because it comes around this time when you see Rooney at club level probably doing it more and losing his temper a bit. I mean, not too many red cards in his period, but in 2006 is when he gets sent off for England, which is this is a bit of a prelude to that.
Yeah, I think you covered it there. It wasn't as big an issue throughout his career than I thought it would be. I mean, at Manchester United, he did have some discipline, some strange. I always remember the West Ham game, shouting and swearing at the camera. He's last of a dying breed, isn't he, Wayne Rooney? They really don't make footballers with that personality like him.
But I guess these days as well, people are derided for that personality at the same time. Like you see someone like Jack Grealish who, I don't know, personality-wise in terms of what he does to the opposition and would wind them up because how he wins free kicks and things like that. But you kind of also get that shouted out of the game these days of people being dickheads. Or Rooney's been behaving himself. England is still having the possession, and as we enter the last 10 minutes, there's some subs. Yeah, so Tevez comes off for Cruz, and Luke Young's torrid night has come to an end. Peter Crouch is on, so Peter Crouch is now playing up front. Now we've got a mixture. It's like a job share of Beckham and Gerrard playing wide right, just whoever feels like it at the time. Rooney dropping into centre midfield, and Konchesky kind of playing left back / left sided centre half. It's a really, really muddled side.
Yeah, just you stay back, Konchesky.
Well, it's really strange because Lampard's now the deepest England player. It looks like Garth Crooks has picked the team.
Yeah,
it's so all over the place.
It's a freak show. The Peter Crouch hype. I forget how good of a player he was.
Yeah.
But I was always slightly annoyed by the hype because people would go, "Oh, he's got the best goal scoring record ever." It's like it's because he scored 4 goals against Jamaica or something, and it's like that's not a real stat.
Yeah,
and really, I wouldn't have picked him over Michael Owen even at this point or the years to come, and I definitely wouldn't have picked him over Wayne Rooney. A good sub, but I feel like people always used to use this weird stat about his goal record to put down Michael Owen.
Yeah, I think it was because Michael Owen was just going through that really difficult time a bit later on as well. And Peter Crouch, really, really good player, but kind of because of his height, he was kind of derided quite a lot, where he was a very, very useful player for England to come off the bench and kind of make an impact. And I think he makes a good impact in this game, actually. He doesn't...
Spoiler.
well, spoiler slightly, but he plays well when he comes on.
He does. I would agree. On 83 minutes, the game's nearly sealed for Argentina. A bit of penalty box pinball.
Yeah,
Paul Robinson does really well here.
Yeah, Lampard gives the ball away while England are defending. Serene, who is just playing up front basically in this game. Like, I've not got loads of memories about Serene playing at club level, but he just seems like he's always up the pitch, always a bit needly with it. So he wins it back, plays it into Riquelme, who puts Cruz in, but Robertson managed to get in the way, and Rodriguez and Robertson kind of just come together somehow, and the ball evades going in, but it's a big scramble at times.
He kind of injures himself a little, doesn't he, Paul Robinson?
Yeah.
Which is a sign of a keeper who's really trying to keep it together. So fair play to Big Paul.
But it's just ridiculous. At this point now, it's just end to end. It's as soon as that Robertson chance is done, England immediately get the ball forward. It comes to Joe Cole out wide left, who wants to try and get the ball in. But yeah, it's just non-stop from here.
Yeah, so just as we go into the last 5 minutes of normal time, Motson notes that 26 shots on goal have been made, 13 each. It has been an equal game. England have been frustrating, but they've always been in it. It really is that just awful goalkeeping, awful defending, on that corner that's been the real difference, and Argentina's quality. But I think Argentina's quality has been matched by just little individual moments from England, and maybe the fight of players like Beckham and Rooney. Who
I think so, and it's that danger of having those good players on the pitch and you just letting them do what they want. Then they will make chances because they are good players. This kind of era of the England side reminds me of some of the better times and Solskjaer for Man United. Because it was just like, well, just stick the best players on the pitch, just it'll figure itself out. And there's always a bit more that's going on than that, but it's not playing well in games, but getting through them and getting the result at times that happens. One thing you get at this point as well is Riquelme comes off.
Yeah.
So they start saving him, thinking, well, game's won. He's not going to do a lot of defending. Instead of bringing a striker off, we'll just bring Riquelme off. And it's, again, a bit of a prelude because taking him off does cost Argentina in the World Cup coming up too.
Rooney has a really lovely moment of skill here, makes a great chip, lovely save, fighting for the ball, beating two. It's just, this is the magic. I mean, do you want to say what Motson says after Rooney's chance?
Yeah, so Motson says, well, Rooney shows why he's key to England winning the World Cup.
Yeah, he's key to England winning the World Cup. Like it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But and he's going to be a big part of it.
He's really going to help that.
It's inevitable. We are in 87 minutes territory.
This is when John Motson loses his shit entirely, isn't it? It's
I
just
will cut
glorious.
some audio from that and get it in at some point when I look back and edit. But well, there's a reason for him going nuts because England equalise on 87 minutes.
Down on the bench. You'd think it was a World Cup match. Michael Owen scores for England, just as he did when he was 18 against Argentina in Stade De Geneve. Wonderful moment for England. 3 minutes from the end of the 90. Steven Gerrard with the cross. Joe Cole went in first, but Owen was lurking behind him. And Graham, it's 2-2.
It's a really, really good cross, deep, and it misses must have been about 4 players. How it doesn't hit either defender or another player, it's ridiculous. And straight onto Michael Owen's head, who heads it in. It's actually quite a good header because he's got to watch the ball come over his shoulder, and you see the other players have to miss it. And it's really just textbook Owen.
Yeah, really nice finish. Scenes on the bench. Motson, I mean, he's going mad here. He's saying he confuses himself a couple of times. He's stumbling over his words. He's going, and he's broken Gary Lineker's record for goals in competitive matches. Obviously, this isn't a competitive match, so he hasn't. But if it was a competitive match, he would. And it's like, okay, just calm down a little bit. But then now he's back on the World Cup thing. If it stays at 2-2, England have set themselves up perfectly for the World Cup. They won't fear anyone.
He also refers to injury time as overtime, which I've never heard him do before.
But I would let it slide, but he corrects himself. He's like, that's an American thing. We don't call it overtime. I should have said injury time.
That is an Americanism.
What a legend. And we're going into the 3 minutes of overtime really now. England 2-2. They've got a little bit of momentum.
This is it. This is just ridiculous. This is essentially, there's 3 minutes now that finish the game entirely.
Rooney, can England win us at the last? Owen's there again. Beckham! Oh, the goalkeeper saved it, Crouch! Oh, goodness, I thought Beckham had got the winner.
I can't believe that. He did everything right. Wayne Rooney picked the ball up. Now Argentina on the attack.
Oh, it's put through by Saviola, and it's Cruz. No penalty. Referee waves it away. Cruz was looking for one. What a climax in the first minute of stoppage time now. Rooney for England. Joe Cole. Crouch comes in far side, but then, then we've got it! England have scored again, it's Michael Owen! It's 3-2! Owen! Owen 2 in a matter of minutes! What an amazing finish in Geneva! Michael Owen there again, and Argentina are deflated. They're standing around looking at each other, and they don't know where the lead has gone, and they don't know where the match has gone. But it's gone to England.
So the ball breaks to Wayne Rooney on the left-hand side, crosses it into David Beckham, who has a header save from 5 yards out, I think it is.
Crazy. A Beckham header, can you imagine? It was so close.
It was actually, I've slagged him off, but it was quite a good point blank range save from the goalkeeper, and then it just goes straight up the other end.
Straight up the other end to end, and I was shocked that wasn't a penalty.
Yeah, first time looking at it, Steven Gerrard basically goes through Cruz to get the ball, and they're just shouting at each other for a couple of minutes. The ball goes back up to the other end of the pitch now.
Yeah, well, go on.
So
have your moment, Nick. This is the reason why we wanted to do this podcast. This game. This is the first game. What happens next?
So Ferdinand slams the ball forward into Joe Cole. Joe Cole looks to try and run at the Argentina defence. David Beckham is actually stood quite close to him, just looking for a ball to play out. Again, what's Beckham doing on the left at this point? He's just been in the penalty area and had the shot saved. Yeah, exactly. The ball comes to Joe Cole. He looks up and he can see Peter Crouch, obviously. And then Michael Owen's in there as well. The ball comes in for Joe Cole and Michael Owen heads it into the bottom corner. It's just bedlam by this point. Michael Owen's doing a celebration I've never seen him do before. Just running around with his hands in the air, leaping.
Yeah, he's such a joyous little face. When back in the day, I think he's a bit of a misery guts these days. But 3-2, they've turned it around in the last 3 minutes or so. Really nice header from Owen. He's got such the skill set for a striker, the technique. For a short guy, you'd probably think he's not going to work that much on his heading because he wants it to feet all the time, but he nails that. Motson is absolutely losing it still. I love it. He forgets whether it's his what's he talking about at this point?
At some point, he thinks they're showing a replay of the first goal.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, and this is the first goal, of course, but it's the second of Owen's. And he's just gone absolutely loopy at this point. I mean, one of the things that does really help is that Peter Crouch is on the pitch for this because, as I say, Joe Cole looks up, he sees Crouch, plays the ball in, but what's behind him is Samwell. Now, Samwell and Owen on their own, I think Samwell is going through Owen and still somehow winning the ball.
Yeah.
The problem is Peter Crouch is the meat in between that sandwich, and he's actually blocking Samwell. So Owen's got a free header at goal into the bottom corner now. So it's kind of a half assist for Peter Crouch.
Yeah. The game pretty much finishes after that. One thing of note is that Owen has done nothing all game, and then he scores 2 goals in the last couple of minutes to win it. That Motson says, he's on the warpath now to becoming England's top scorer of all time, and it just felt like that was inevitable.
Yeah, to me, it's just ridiculous because it was that certain and set on, wasn't it? You just thought this is absolutely going to happen. It's going to be Michael Owen who's going to be the top scorer for England ever, and yeah, it just never really happened. Motson even says that he'll enjoy this night as much as he did the 5-1 against Germany. I mean,
no, he won't.
That's a qualifying game.
Yeah.
He scored a hat-trick.
Yeah.
He was at the height of his career at that point as well. And as good of a moment as this was, as we say, it's quite bitty. And again, in classic England fashion, leads to nothing.
Leads to absolutely nothing. So England have won. The fallout, we looked at the context that we went into the game. All of the results for both sides and what have you. So what happened after this for both sides?
So Argentina go to the World Cup. They breeze through their qualifying groups and they go out to Germany on penalties. They were 1-0 up in the game against Germany, the hosts. And again, as we see in this game, they lose control of the game when Riquelme comes off when they're trying to rest him for the next round. I think this was made quite famous because Jens Lehmann was in goal for Germany and he got notes down his shin pads.
Yeah, right.
But he said that one of the players that stepped up, he actually didn't have anything for, and he knew he didn't, but he still looked at his shin pad notes just to go, well, he thinks I know where he's putting it now.
And I guess for England, I do see why Motson was so pitching this as like this is a World Cup test because we didn't play any more big teams in the lead up to it. So it was a really good result to hang your hat on to go into the World Cup. But it was not a happy time for England, really.
Yeah, the build-up's a bit of a shambles, really. So in classic England style, England go to the World Cup with a half-fit Wayne Rooney, who did his metatarsal at Stamford Bridge a couple of weeks before the tournament. They play really poorly in their first 2 games against Paraguay.
Heartbreaking. Just knowing, great, Rooney's injured. This always happens. This just always happens. It was Beckham, it was Owen for years.
And again, metatarsal as well. Yeah. There's probably 4 or 5 players for England who picked up that injury around the same period. I don't know if it was maybe something with the boots changing, so maybe they were a bit more susceptible to that.
I don't think England have had that issue recently, but we don't have a talisman in a sense. I know Harry Kane, but some people think Harry Kane would be better off dropped, and I don't. But I can't think of a player who I would be like, oh God, they're injured.
I think Harry Kane's probably the closest you'd come to going, well, what are we going to do? Because you'd have someone like Calvert-Lewin, who's really, a very, very good player, but he's not Harry Kane, and he's not at that level yet. A proven international goal scorer. Every single season, he seems to be getting 30+ goals.
Yeah. So the World Cup, Paraguay, Trinidad and Tobago, just terrible.
They do win those games though, which is of note, but it's never in spectacular fashion. No. I remember really late on, Peter Crouch kind of scores against Trinidad, and he's kind of pulling the defender's hair as he's doing it.
It was a Beckham free kick, wasn't it, against Paraguay?
I think it was a free kick that went in. I think it was an own goal.
I remember watching that game. Drinking white lightning cider before and projectile vomiting into a bin.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
A lovely metaphor for
England.
Yeah. They play Sweden in the dead rubber of the group stage 2-2. Owen gets injured.
Which is probably England's best game of the tournament, though. England play like a bit of a mixed side. I think Jamie Carragher ends up playing at right back or something, and it's a really fun game to watch, actually. This is where Joe Cole scores that great goal we've already spoken about as well.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So they get through against Ecuador in the first knockouts, and then it's the classic 8 on penalties.
Yeah. England go out on penalties to Portugal. This time it's Wayne Rooney who's sent off for stamping on Carvalho's balls, and it's
Was this the wink?
This was Ronaldo's wink, yeah.
Oh my God!
So this was still of the era of England needing a scapegoat, basically, after going out of tournaments. Because in '98 it was Beckham. In 2002,
David Seaman.
Actually, that's a good point. David Seaman. You'd say 2004. We'd say, it was the referee in the Portugal game, even though that's a load of rubbish. And then it wasn't even like it was Rooney. I don't think Rooney got a lot of stick after this.
He didn't.
It was probably, it's Portugal, it's Ronaldo. Ronaldo's got to go back to play with Wayne Rooney.
The thing about Ronaldo and that wink is so overblown. It's nothing. I don't blame him. Have a wink. The thing is, England's best player's just been sent off.
Yeah, and as well, Rooney had been having a bit of a torrid time. I think he'd only played a bit of some of the games. I think he'd come off against Ecuador and he kind of thrown his boot on the floor, and he just seemed really frustrated because he knew he was just nowhere near fit as well.
And was that all she wrote for Sven?
That was, and I remember Sven. So after Sven left, it had been announced that McLaren was taking over.
That's going to be good.
Yeah, that's about that. The better. But I remember Sven in his press conference actually after this game saying, "Please don't kill Rooney."
Yeah. And
they didn't really.
They didn't. No.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can pull Wayne Rooney up for outside of the years to come and all that. But at the time, I do think the press were quite lenient on him. It was more about the scapegoat and the witch hunt for Ronaldo, really. And they both went back to club and spoke, and both kind of kicked on. Big stages in both their careers, really. It's kind of like in a way this made both of them.
Rooney, I feel like this was the point where Rooney was a lot better than Ronaldo overall. Or was Ronaldo starting to level out, maybe?
I think Ronaldo was just coming to that point in this game. It's and in this tournament where he was becoming one of the best players. It kind of you felt it coming a little while, and the start of the next season is where he kind of exploded. Yeah,
so that's all she wrote for Sven. I think I look back and I love the Sven era, and success wise, he's probably the most successful. Up until Southgate.
Yeah.
Because it was consecutive quarterfinals and that sort of thing. But we as England fans were like, this team should be getting to a final.
And I remember, of the other eras of the Hodgsons and very briefly Allardyce and all this kind of stuff. You were going, just give us a quarterfinal. We would love a run to a quarterfinal. That's all you kind of wanted. That's how expectations have been lowered so much compared to the underachievement of going to a quarterfinal.
Yep. So we're pretty much done with episode 1.
Yeah.
Nick, was this England?
I think it was very England. This wasn't it. It was glorious yet meaningless victory, which led to expectations raising, but in reality came to nothing. But on a one night, really good memory.
I'm torn. Overall, I will say yes. This was very England, but I mean, my reason for that mainly, sorry, before I get on to the but, is the performance, which, despite the win, was mainly frustrating.
Yeah.
I was frustrated a lot, and there was some crazy individual errors. So overall, yes, but the fact that England actually won is not very England.
Yeah.
But another one, the fact that they won in a meaningless friendly, that sums it up as well. That would not have happened if this was a World Cup quarter-final.
No,
the
definitely
expectations and everything would have crushed the players.
The game essentially would have ended when Riquelme comes off.
Exactly. Well, brilliant. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed that. Anything else you want to add?
No, nothing. Just, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some sort of email address or something for people to get in touch with, and we'll set up social media and all that. Thank you very much, and speak to you soon.